The most recent Zelda game, Echoes of Wisdom, started its life as a prototype dungeon maker where you could construct your own Zelda dungeon, play it and share it with your friends. With the announcement of the Switch 2, now is the perfect time to revisit this idea. Today I want to dive into the idea of a Zelda dungeon maker as a spin-off title in the Legend of Zelda series. If you like this video, then subscribe for more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. Well, Nintendo has dabbled in Zelda dungeon making in the Link's Awakening remake for Nintendo Switch released in 2019. This feature was called Chamber Dungeons. As you completed the main dungeons in the story, new chambers would open up, and they are replicas of rooms completed in the dungeons that you run through via the story. So you can visit Dampy's shack in Taotao Heights, and use the chambers to complete the challenges set by Dampy himself. The chambers have to be arranged to fit a given shape and certain conditions have to be met. For example, the dungeon has to have an entrance room, the dungeon has to have a nightmare's lair, and all rooms in the dungeon must connect. There also must be sufficient keys for all locked doors and blocks, and completing Dampy's various challenges will get you some rewards, things like a fairy bottle or rupees. So this was a nice little side feature in the Link's Awakening remake, adding a little bit more value and something different to fans who'd already played through the game on the original Game Boy. Well, the Link's Awakening remake was developed by Grezzo in partnership with Nintendo, and once Link's Awakening was complete, they set upon their next task of creating a new Zelda game. Grezzo would pitch ideas to IG Aonuma and Nintendo, and one idea that sparked a lot of excitement within the Grezzo studio was an idea where you could copy and paste elements in a top-down and also a side view. Now, IG Aonuma pushed back against the Grezzo team and asked them to come up with a little bit more freedom into their game concept. And Aonuma said this in the Ask the Developer series before Echoes of Wisdom was published. So, having worked on games in the Legend of Zelda series over the years, we started to feel that fans may not continue playing this franchise unless they can think independently and try various things freely on their own, rather than following a set path. So Grezzo were coming up with ideas for IG Aonuma, and they developed the concept of a dungeon maker, building on their work from Link's Awakening. Another member of the development team on Echoes of Wisdom, Tarada, says, "We're exploring a few different ways to play the game in parallel. In one approach, Link could copy and paste various objects such as doors and candlesticks to create original dungeons. During this exploration phase, this idea was called an edit dungeon because players could create their own Legend of Zelda gameplay." While IG Aonuma thought the concept was fun, he would eventually push back on the idea, and the concept would evolve into the Echoes mechanic that we got in the final game, Echoes of Wisdom. Well, Aonuma said, "They showed it to me and told me to give it a try. As I played, I started thinking that while it's fun to create your own dungeon and let other people play it, it's also not so bad to place items that can be copy and pasted in the game field and create gameplay where they can be used to fight enemies. And this was the beginning of the gameplay using echoes. The gameplay was then shifted from creating dungeons up until then to using copy and pasted items as tools to further your own adventure." Well, we very nearly had a Zelda dungeon maker there from Nintendo, and I do think now would be the perfect time to revisit that idea, given we got the Switch 2 coming. Now, we don't know the full details of the Switch 2, they will be confirmed in April this year with a big Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. However, I believe we've got the right conditions of the improved online features and also mouse controls. A dungeon creator could be the perfect application to show off the power of the Nintendo Switch 2. Rumours have been flying around related to the mouse controls, given the optical sensor on the Joy-Con. Then in the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal trailer, Nintendo had the Joy-Cons racing around the table looking very much like real-life rodents. If we do get mouse support, and it is not confirmed yet, then that is going to be the perfect tool to help to put together Zelda dungeons much quicker than using a controller. It would be more comfortable, it'd be faster, and it'd be easier for the audience to create their own dungeon. Another feature of the Switch 2 will be better online support. So we've got the rumoured C button on the right Joy-Con with the C potentially standing for community. The Switch 2 could have Discord-like features built into the console to allow for easy sharing and broadcasting to a group of friends. Sharing your dungeons and allowing friends to easily play them is key to any Maker game. Super Mario Maker was onto something with its first game, although sharing with the codes was a little bit tricky. Now hopefully Nintendo can come up with an easier sharing method, allowing players to quickly create and allow easy access to millions of Zelda fans all around the world. I'm really hopeful with the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 we can finally get the Zelda Dungeon Maker that I certainly want. However, there is one fly in the ointment for this idea, and that's the opinion of IG Aonuma, the Legend of Zelda producer. So in an interview with Polygon in 2023, they put this question to him saying, is there ever a world you can imagine a Zelda game that allows people to make their own dungeons, almost like Super Mario Maker? And Aonuma said, I think it's important we don't make the creativity a requirement. Instead, we put things into the game that encourage people to be creative and give them the opportunity to be creative without forcing them to. There are people who want the ability to create from scratch, but that is not for everyone. Now, I think that everyone delights in the discovery of finding your own way through a game, and that is something we try to make sure we included in Tears of the Kingdom. There isn't one right way to play. If you're a creative person, you have that ability to go down that path. But that's not what you have to do. You're also able to proceed in the game in many other different ways. And so I don't think it'd be a good fit for The Legend of Zelda to necessarily require people to build things from scratch and force them to be creative. Well, that was IG Aonuma in 2023, so here he was on the press circuit promoting Tears of the Kingdom. So I'm not really surprised he highlighted the creativity in Tears of the Kingdom, but he does have a valid point, not everybody wants to create. Well, there is hope though. Shigeru Miyamoto is still a fan of creating and pressed IG Aonuma to add the Maker features into the Link's Awakening remake. So if for some reason I was president of Nintendo, the way I would get around it was to have a spin-off title. This doesn't have to be a mainline Zelda game that's placed on the timeline. This could be a spin-off similar to Link's Crossbow Training, or for example the Tingle games. Well, I do want to shout out some alternatives out there. There are some dungeon makers that are really good in the indie space. For example, we've got Super Dungeon Maker on Nintendo Switch, and also Questmaster is another excellent dungeon maker inspired by Zelda dungeons. You've got that top-down look, you've got that pixel art, it looks absolutely fantastic. So if you can't wait until Nintendo creates a Zelda dungeon maker for themselves, you definitely do have a few options out there to pick up and play while we wait. Well, I did put the question out to the community, do you want a Zelda dungeon maker? And I did get some good responses. So first of all, we've got Markart8. Markart says, I noticed that how Link is in Super Mario Maker 2. Now, what if there was a third Super Mario Maker and you play as Link from the beginning instead? When making a level, you've got a lot of Super Mario Maker elements in them. You've got temples, you've got cart modes, and you get to play as Mario and Link in them as well. Well, thank you, Markart. That is a decent idea there. Reuse the assets or reuse the mechanisms from Super Mario Maker and Super Mario Maker 2 and apply that to The Legend of Zelda. I think that would be a very good idea indeed. Well, next up we've got Gaming Reinvented, and they say a Zelda Dungeon Maker would be great, especially if you could set up your own overarching dungeon mechanics, lay out rooms and obstacles in any way that you want, choose a fitting boss and mini-boss encounters. I do worry that it may be tough to truly capture that feel of a unique dungeon though, since oftentimes that revolves around an interesting item or ability and fitting obstacles and puzzles to clear with it. That part may be a little bit limited with a Mario Maker-like toolset. Well, thank you Gaming Reinvented, I think you bring up an interesting point there. You definitely do have to have real skill to create an interesting dungeon, and as you say there, it often revolves around an interesting item or ability, and also the obstacles and the puzzles too, and it's not a simple thing to create a good Zelda dungeon. But what I'd like to do is put it out there to the masses and to the community. You can imagine if hundreds or thousands of people were creating Zelda dungeons. When you crowdsource something like that, you always come up with some surprises. I would imagine you would get some really small, intricate dungeons. You get absolutely huge, really large dungeons. You'd probably get people remaking classic dungeons from the series. I would just love to crowdsource it and see what the community make. And imagine having a leaderboard of dungeons as well for the most popular ones. You could upvote, you could get like a popular or a trending list of dungeons. I reckon that would be really, really cool. Next up we got Vian Abdullah, and they say, I don't think that most people will be able to make good dungeons, as Mario levels are much easier to conceptualize. Nintendo has been testing out this concept since the 80s. They haven't really figured out a way to make it intuitive, though a bite-sized shrine maker would be an interesting side mode to make use of the Switch 2's stronger hardware. Vian Abdullah, that is a very, very good idea. I hadn't thought of that about a shrine maker. That is really interesting. That, I guess a shrine is slightly smaller than a dungeon. That's a more self-contained puzzle. And you're thinking there about the 3D space. I was thinking about the top-down kind of 2D space, but I do like the way you are thinking there. I think that is a very, very interesting idea, especially if the Switch 2 is going to be more powerful. We really could create some interesting stuff there. So thank you very much for your comment. That is very, very good. Well, next up we got Olivier F2938, and they say, I'd love it. I guess 2D dungeons would be easier to make. Nintendo probably dropped the idea because of the complexity in the first place. So I can't really imagine a 3D version existing right away. That being said, I don't really know why it'd be for Switch 2 specifically. Is it because of the mouse controls? Yeah, it's a nice option, but the touchscreen in Super Mario Maker is enough, in my honest opinion. And 2D Zelda, even Grezzo made the Switch chug at times, doesn't require the extra power. Anyway, a full-blown Zelda Maker would be lovely. Well, thank you very much for your comment there. We are probably right there, it doesn't have to be for the Switch 2. I was thinking that the mouse controls would make it a little bit easier to put together a dungeon, especially if you're doing it from a top-down view in 2D there. I thought the mouse controls would make it a little bit easier, but it doesn't necessarily need to be tied to the Switch 2. You could make it for the Switch 1 as well. Although we have seen Mario Maker on the Switch already, I'm not really sure that one did very well with the touchscreen controls, but thank you very much for your comment. And finally, we got Vitor Moraes, and they say, I like the idea, but maybe it could be put inside Mario Maker 3. Otherwise, we could be cannibalizing each other. Also, the idea could be expanded further, having Donkey Kong or Metroid elements in there as well. Imagine sharing your own version of a Goron Temple, playing Hothead Bot blasting with Samus. Well, Vitor, I think you have a really, really interesting idea. You've almost got like a maker version of Super Smash Bros. You're bringing in loads of different Nintendo IP. I would imagine that would be really, really complicated, but I could imagine bringing in all the 2D titles. You've got Metroid, you've got Donkey Kong, you've got Mario, you've got the early Legend of Zelda games there. That could be a very interesting idea, although it's going to be complex. It's going to be quite difficult to make that one, but I do like your ambition, and thank you for writing in with your comment. Well, let me know what you think about a Zelda Dungeon Maker. I would love to hear what you think. But that is it for this video today. Looking at the next Zelda game should be a Zelda Dungeon Maker. And as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. Well, thanks again. I'll see you soon. Well, this video is brought to you by Triforce Times Backstage. This is available through Patreon or YouTube membership, and you're going to get exclusive benefits, plus you'll be able to go above and beyond to support Triforce Times. Free content is core to Triforce Times, and you can continue to enjoy these videos that you know and love. However, if you want to enjoy the benefits like early access, our community Discord, shoutouts in the credits of videos, content polls and exclusive videos, then select the tier that is right for you and join Triforce Times Backstage today. So help me make Triforce Times be even bigger and better, plus you're going to get some added benefits for a small fee every month. Well, thank you for listening, and now it is time to go back to the video.